In 1957, the head waiter at a supper club on Pennsylvania Avenue in Baltimore made $40 a week and walked into that dining room looking like he owned the block. The men he served were doctors, numbers kings, entertainers off the stage at the Royal, men with real money, and not one of them was better dressed than the man pouring their wine. He had studied the rich up close for 20 years, close enough to see exactly what separated real money from the look of it, and he had learned to buy the look and skip the money. But every busboy under him wanted to know one thing: how does a man on a waiter's wage make a $200 table full of rich men look ordinary? He had a code for it. And the one rule underneath the whole thing, the plainest secret of dressing richer than you are, is number one on this list. He was not rare. In every black neighborhood in the country, there were men exactly like him: the waiter, the janitor, the mill hand, the Pullman porter, men who walked out of a rented room in a $9 suit and got mistaken for men of means. It was never just vanity. It was a craft, and in the world these men were sent into, it was also armor. A working black man was written off as broke the second he appeared, so he learned to dress in a way that made the world's first assumption wrong before he opened his mouth. They turned looking like money into a discipline so precise they never thought of themselves as fooling anybody. They just thought they were putting their best out front. We inherited the wanting and none of the knowing, and we spend more than they ever did and look poorer doing it. Number 21 cost less than $1, and it was the single fastest way to make a cheap suit read as expensive. Number 9 is the exact opposite of what a man spends his money on today, and it was the thing the rich actually noticed first. And number 3, the move that let a working man walk into a room of wealthy strangers and be taken for one of them on sight, is the rule his whole illusion was built on. It is where this list ends. Number 1. These were never about fooling people out of vanity or pretending to be something shameful. They were about refusing to let a thin wallet be the first and last thing the world saw in a country that wanted a black man's poverty to be the whole story. The world changed shape, and we let this code go quiet, not because it stopped working, but because we mistook it for old-fashioned. We are turning it back up. Every rule on this list, that head waiter lived by heart. Hit that subscribe button and let us count down how working-class black men dressed richer than they were, the forgotten dress code. Number 25, buy one great thing and build around it. He saved and bought one genuinely fine thing, a good jacket, one real pair of shoes, and built everything else around it. The head waiter owned one beautiful gray suit and made it look like 6 by what he put with it. Percy Nolan wore a single fine sport coat for a decade in the Hill District of Pittsburgh, and people remembered the coat, not the cheap shirts beneath it. One fine thing, worn with care, made the whole man look like money. Number 24. Fit beats price, every time. A cheap suit that fit a man like it was cut for him beat an expensive one hanging off him, and the rich knew it, which is why fit was the first thing they clocked. So a working man befriended a tailor and never wore a thing off the rack unaltered, taking every cheap jacket in at the shoulder and waist until it looked bespoke. Roosevelt Meade paid a Jackson Ward tailor in Richmond 50 cents to fix a $2 suit and looked like 40. Fayette bought the illusion, and fit was cheap. Number 23. Dark colors, red rich. The working man learned what the wealthy knew: navy, charcoal, and black, photographed like money, hid wear, forgave a cheap fabric, and never looked like a man trying. Silas Boone wore nothing but charcoal and navy on Sweet Auburn in Atlanta and was taken for a banker. The head waiter owned 3 suits, all dark, and rotated them so no one ever clocked how few he had. Rich was quiet and dark. Broke was bright and busy. Number 22, spend it where it shows first. A man put his money exactly where the eye landed first and skipped the rest. Good shoes, a clean collar, one fine tie, the things at the top and bottom where a glance goes, and the middle whatever he could afford. The head waiter wore a magnificent watch and magnificent shoes and a plain everything else, and everyone remembered the watch and the shoes. Garfield Poole spent his whole clothing budget on Central Avenue in Los Angeles on shoes and a coat. He spent on the corners. Number 21, the pressed everything. Whatever a man owned, it was pressed to a razor edge, and that cost under $1 and made a $9 suit look pressed by a valet. A crease you could cut bread with, said a man, was tended to, whether by a wife, a mother, or his own hand at midnight. Elbert Hayes pressed his in the Ville in St. Louis before every shift until the seams stood up. The iron was the cheapest wealth in the house, and the working man used it like a weapon. Number 20, shoes like a rich man's. The rich were red at the feet, so the feet were where a working man refused to be cheap. One good pair, resoled and re-heeled forever, shined to a mirror every night. The head waiter had his one fine pair rebuilt 3 times rather than buy cheap ones, because the rich never wore cheap shoes. Booker Cade shined his on a Beale Street step in Memphis until they threw back the marquee lights. Number 19, never wear anything visibly worn. A frayed cuff, a shiny seat, a rundown heel. One visibly worn thing collapsed the whole illusion, so it was mended invisibly or retired. The head waiter turned a collar, patched a lining, and darned a sock so no eye could find it. Theodore Pruitt kept a needle by the door in Overtown, Miami, and fixed the small betrayals before they showed. The working man could not wear new, so he made old look unworn, and that was the whole trick. Number 18, the crisp white shirt. Nothing said money like a white shirt so clean and so pressed. It looked new every day, and a white shirt was the cheapest thing in the store. Boiled, starched, and pressed, it framed the face like real wealth and cost almost nothing. Roosevelt Grimes wore a white shirt, white as a fresh page through the coal dust of Bronzeville. The head waiter owned 6 and rotated them, so one was always perfect. A clean white shirt was the sure bet the rich made every day, and so did he.
Before we go on, I made something special for you. A guide for men who still believe a good name and quiet dignity carry weight, the way our fathers and grandfathers did. It's the Black Gentleman's Code, the forgotten rules black men once lived by. But this knowledge is disappearing, and once it's gone for good. So don't spend another year being the man people overlook. Scan the QR code on your screen or click the link below. Go ahead, I'll be right here waiting.
Number 17, match your leather. Belt to shoes, watch band to belt, all the leather in agreement. A detail the untrained never noticed, but the wealthy always did. Garrett Hale would not leave Black Bottom in Detroit with a brown belt over black shoes. It cost nothing. It only required knowing, and knowing was the working man's real inheritance. Number 16, carry less and better. A man's pockets did not bulge. A rich man carried little and fine. One good pen, a clean handkerchief, a slim fold of bills, never a stuffed pocket that ruined a line. Lonzo Pratt carried a single fine pen on Beale Street and nothing else that showed. The head waiter's suit hung clean because nothing weighed it down. The man who looked rich kept his light and his line unbroken. Here is what worth sitting with. That headwaiter dressed better on $40 a week than most of us do on 10 times that, because he understood something we have completely lost: that looking like money was never about spending money. It was about knowledge, fit, color, care, and restraint, none of which cost a dime. Today, a young man will spend $200 on a shirt with a name across the chest and look, to anyone who knows, exactly like what he is: a man who paid to advertise for a company. These men would have found that baffling. They spent nothing and looked like everything because they learned the code instead of buying the label. We have the money they never had, and we look poorer than they ever did. Number 15, no logos, no loud labels. The single surest sign of real money was that you could not tell where any of it came from: no name on the chest, nothing announcing a price. The wealthy hid their labels, only the insecure wore them out. The headwaiter's clothes never told you what they cost or who made them, exactly like the rich men he served. Nathaniel Sharp wore nothing branded on Beale Street in Memphis and looked richer for it. Real money never needed you to know. Number 14, the confidence that sold it. The finest suit collapsed on a man who wore it apologizing, and the cheapest soared on a man who wore it like he belonged. The illusion was half cloth and half carriage, shoulders back, unhurried, like the room was simply his. The headwaiter moved through that dining room like he could have been seated at any table in it. Wendell Cruz wore a $10 suit like $100 in the Fillmore in San Francisco. The clothes opened the door. The way a man wore them walked him through it. Number 13, restraint over flash. The rich underdid it, the broke overdid it. 1 ring, not 4, a watch, not a wrist of gold. The working man who wanted to look like money studied the wealthy and copied their restraint, not the flash he imagined wealth to be. Amos Kittredge wore 1 good ring in Deep Ellum, Dallas, and nothing else, and read as a man of means. The head waiter wore exactly 1 fine thing at a time and let it speak. Less was the confidence of a man who already had enough. Number 12, buy quality second-hand. A working man could not afford new quality, so he bought old. A rich man's fine cast-off was worth 10 new cheap things, and real cloth looked like money on its second owner. Sylvester Boone dressed like a senator out of a Jackson Ward resale shop in Richmond. The head waiter bought wealthy men's barely worn suits for pennies and had them fitted to himself. The label a rich man threw away still said, "Money." He just let it say it for someone new. Number 11, groomed to the rich man's standard. The clothes were half of it. Grooming was the other half, and grooming was nearly free. A fresh cut every week, a clean shave, trimmed nails, the polish the wealthy took for granted, a working man simply did for himself. Ambrose Kittrell kept a fresh line every week on Farish Street in Jackson, though he could barely spare it. The head waiter was barbered like a banker on a waiter's pay. Grooming cost time, not money, and it made the cheapest suit look like it belonged on a cared-for man. Number 10, the overcoat did the talking. In cold weather, the world saw the coat first and judged everything under it by that, so the coat was the one thing a man made sure was right. 1 long, dark, well-cut topcoat turned any suit beneath it into money. Garfield Poole owned a single fine overcoat for 20 years on Central Avenue and never looked like less than a man of means in winter. The head waiter's overcoat was the best thing he owned because it was the first thing anyone saw. The outer layer was the whole verdict, so he made it count. Here is the part of his story we have been circling. That head waiter did not start with a code of his own. He started as a busboy clearing plates in that same room, a boy watching the old captain who ran the floor move among wealthy strangers looking like the wealthiest man in the house on the smallest wage in it. He watched for years, the old man rebuilding one pair of shoes instead of buying cheap ones, wearing the same 3 dark suits so well nobody counted them, reading a rich man's whole fortune in his lapels, and then quietly building the same look for a fraction. And the day the old captain handed him the floor and stepped back, the boy understood he was not being handed a job. He was being handed a code, a room where the illusion had to hold every single night, and a line of working men who had dressed like kings on nothing, going back further than either of them could name. He would run that floor for 30 years dressed exactly the way it had been done for him. And the one rule the old captain taught him first is still coming. It is number 1. Number 9. Spend on the watch, not the car. Everything today tells a young man to put his money into the thing everyone sees him arrive in. These men did the opposite. A fine watch on the wrist said quiet, permanent money. In a way, a flashy anything never could, and it was the first thing the wealthy actually checked on another man. The head waiter wore one beautiful watch, bought used and kept perfect, and rich men treated him as a peer because of it. Wilbert Stokes saved 2 years for one fine watch in the Fillmore and wore it 40. The loud purchase impressed the broke. The quiet watch impressed the rich. Number 8. The tie told the truth. A silk tie, knotted right with a clean dimple, cost little and did enormous work. A good tie on a cheap shirt lifted the whole man, and the knot itself was a class marker the rich read instantly. The head waiter's tie was always silk, always dimpled, always the finest thing at his throat. Julius Vane owned 3 good silk ties in Rondo, St. Paul, and knotted them like a man who owned 30. The tie was small, cheap, and it did not lie. Number 7. The handkerchief finished it. A folded white square in the breast pocket was the final inch that turned a plain jacket into a considered one. Pennies of cloth that said a man had thought all the way to the end of himself. The head waiter's pocket square was always there, always plain, always exact. Elbert Choice tucked one into every jacket in Bronzeville. The suit without it was dressed. The suit with it was finished, and finished read as money. Number 6. Stand like the clothes are yours. Posture cost nothing, and it did half the work. A straight back, squared shoulders, an unhurried carriage. The rich stood like they had never once doubted their right to a room, and a working man who stood the same way wore the same authority. Elias Ford stood straight as a plumb line in the Hill District, no matter what the mill had done to him. The head waiter carried himself through that dining room like an owner. Slouch made a fine suit look borrowed. A straight back made a cheap one look earned. Number 5. Never explain the clothes. A man who looked like money never mentioned his clothes, never named a price, never explained where a thing came from or apologized for what it cost. The rich never discussed their clothes because they never thought about them. The working man who wanted to pass did the same, and let the silence do the work. The head waiter never once told a soul his suit came second-hand, and Marcus Pendleton never named the price of anything in Bronzeville. Talking about the clothes broke the spell. Saying nothing kept it whole. Number 4. Dress the same on an ordinary Tuesday. The rich did not save their good selves for occasions. They looked like money on a Wednesday buying a newspaper, which is exactly how you knew it was real. So the working man who wanted to pass, never dressed down, never had an off-day look, was put together to walk to the corner. Lorenzo Biggs would not step to the store on U Street in Washington in anything he would not be seen in at church. The head waiter looked like money on his day off, at the market, anywhere. Dressing up for occasions marked a man for whom dressing up was an occasion. He made it his ordinary. Number 3. Look like you already belong. This is the rule the whole illusion was built on. A man walked into a room of wealthy strangers, not hoping to be accepted, but quietly certain he already belonged. And the room, reading that certainty off his clothes and his carriage, simply believed him and made space. The head waiter could walk into any room on the avenue and be taken for a man of standing because everything about him had already decided he was one. Harvey Lincoln walked into rooms across the Hill District where nobody knew him and was received as somebody on nothing but the certainty he wore. The clothes said money, and the belonging sealed it. A man who acted like he belonged was rarely ever questioned. Number 2, carry yourself the same in every room. The illusion held only if it never slipped. The same fine carriage in the fine dining room and on the poor block where he actually lived, the same man in the tailored coat and the same man without it. The head waiter was as composed clearing a table as being mistaken for a guest at one. Ezekiel Vaughn was the same dignified man in every room in Overtown, Miami, rich or poor. A man whose bearing changed when the money in the room changed gave the whole game away. The one who carried himself identically everywhere was believed everywhere. Consistency was the thread the illusion hung on. Number 1, it was never about the clothes. The plainest rule on the list, and the one that head waiter would have named above every other. All of it, the fit, the dark colors, the good shoes, the quiet watch, was only ever the outside of a thing that lived underneath. A man's decision that he was worth as much as any wealthy stranger, and his refusal to let a thin wallet tell him otherwise. The clothes did not make him look rich. His certainty that he was somebody made the clothes look rich on him. It was the first thing the old captain taught him, and the last thing he taught the busboys who came after. Every other rule on this list was really just a way of showing that one thing, that a man had decided, whatever his wages said, that he was not poor in any way that counted, because here is the secret those men knew that money cannot buy. The world takes you at the value you place on yourself, and these men placed it high and dressed to match. It was never about the clothes, it was about a man who refused to be counted out. That was the whole code. None of this required money, and that was the entire point. It required knowledge, care, restraint, and a decision, a working man deciding that the world's first assumption about him was going to be wrong. The men who pressed their own suits and rebuilt their own shoes and studied the rich to outdress them understood something this country has spent billions trying to sell us out of, that looking like money and having money were never the same thing, and the first was always free to anyone willing to learn it. These were men who chose, against everything, to walk out of a rented room looking like they owned the block, and taught their sons the code instead of chasing the label. The avenues have gone quiet, and the supper clubs have closed. But the knowing is not complicated, and it is not lost. Somewhere a working man is still pressing a cheap suit to a razor edge, shining one good pair of shoes, and walking out the door looking like the richest man on the street.